Welcome. I will read the required statement. It says here, good morning. Welcome to the 35th CALLERLAB Convention. Today is the 18th of March, I believe, in 2008, and this is the Winning Ways session. I am Jim Mayo, your moderator, and your panelist today is Dennis O'Neill. And our topic is Winning Ways. I presume that most of you are aware that the CALLERLAB website has a section labeled Winning Ways, and on it are dozens, 30 or so, stories about things that have succeeded in bringing people to square dancing. Those are wonderful stories, and I have looked through them very carefully. I've talked to people all over everywhere. What I'm trying to find is a winning way that succeeds for more than a year. Many of those stories tell about a one-year success, how they recruited people, brought them through the door. But there are, in my experience at least, very, very few stories in today's square dance world about clubs that have maintained, or even better, grown their participation over the last several years. Even many of the recruiting techniques that I've seen and heard about and talked with people about bring in a large crowd of dancers and start a good-sized class, and we then very quickly drive them out. We have had a unique ability over the last decade or so of inability to keep the people who came through our doors to try square dancing. And one of the things I want to talk to you about today are clubs that are finding ways to have a success continue into a second, third, and even more years. Dennis is a fairly new caller who happened into a relatively isolated section of the world and found a club that was foundering. He came with a smile and a new attitude, and over the last couple of years has turned that club around so that they are too busy having fun to know what foundering means. And they are indeed continuing their success at least into the second year. And I'd like to start off by letting Dennis O'Neill tell you about, is it the Timberline Toppers?
Yeah, again, our club is the Timberline Toppers in Frisco, Colorado. If any of you are familiar with it, it's a little town. It's a ski resort community 70 miles west of Denver at 9,000 feet. We like to say we the highest dancing club in the country. And that's what callers do when they come up there. And we're a guest caller club. And we tell them, when you start, if you got some high energy thing, save it to the end. Otherwise, you'll be out of breath. But our club's been in existence. We just celebrated it 19 years. And we've had the ups and downs and things. But in 2004 and 2005, we found ourselves with barely 2 squares on the floor. Most of this because of just natural attrition, losing people to sickness or moving out of the mountains because they couldn't handle it. But we couldn't afford to even hire the caller to come back up and teach our class. We had made a transition from once a week to twice a week. And so out of necessity, more than anything else, we had a meeting and decided, what do we do to get our club back on track? And basically started thinking outside the box. And one of our ideas actually came from a leadership meeting in Portland that our president went to. And it was about a free chili dinner. And it was a free chili dinner basically for the community and not lessons. We basically got away from promoting lessons because I think that's about the dumbest thing that we can do. Because every time you say, how about you join and come with me to lessons for square dance? The first answer you get is, I'm not interested. And so you have to get around that. And as I said at a previous thing, we spend too much time pushing lessons and trying to promote square dancing instead of just letting square dancing promote itself. So, again, we decided to do this chili dinner. I stepped up to the plate and volunteered, which is totally out of my comfort zone, to try to teach. And we thought if we were lucky, we would get 20 people, and maybe 10 of them would join the club and finish lessons. And so I was kind of geared towards teaching 3 or 4 couples. We had a chili dinner. We had 88 people show up, and I ended up with a class of 37. All 37 joined the club, and there's still about 28 of them dancing today out of that first group. And we naturally, the Denver group thought that, well, this is a fluke. Our club set out to prove that if you quit trying to promote square dancing and let square dancing promote itself and make it fun and entertaining, that it'll take care of itself. So we did it again in January 2007. We had 99 people show up at our free dinner, and we ended up with a class of 61, 57 finished, 56 joined the club. We have now couldn't even have a class this year because we don't have room for them. So in the fall of 2007, we had another class, a very small class. It only took us a month to put it together. We ended up with 16 new people. So we had like 104 people in the last 2 years, which creates a different problem. One of the problems we had this year was, one, we don't have any more room. We're dancing 8 to 10 squares. And second, most of our new dancers, everybody is a new dancer, you know. Out of 8 squares, you've got 1 square of angels. So this year we're working on workshops and getting their speed up. But the thing I think we both want to come out of this is that square dancing can be revitalized, and it doesn't have to be declining numbers of dancers. We just have to quit thinking the old ways. Clubs in Denver like what we've done, but they don't want to do it. They want to do what they've been doing for the last 20 years, which is asking their neighbor to come to square dance lessons. Neighbor says, nope, did that in the 6th grade. I'm not going to do it, you know. We had the community dance. We had no expectation of anything. We just pushed it off as our club was going to start their new lesson, and we're just going to have a dance for the community, and this is the way we kick it off. We'll provide the entertainment. We'll provide the food. And we had people who would never, if ever asked them for lessons, they would never show up. They came there for one night, free, in the middle of the week, Tuesday night, had so much fun. We had them playing Bear Miller, actually did our first 2 dances, and we never played any country music. We played all fast, high energy, Disney music, jazz music, 70s music. And they just had a ball. And then we said, if you're interested, we have lessons starting in 2 days. If you're interested, $50 a person. That's $2 a night, somewhere around $2 a night, where you can get food and entertainment and fun and just come and be a part of our social activity. And we pushed that really hard, that social activity, not so much the dance. The dance sold itself. And then once we got them doing the lessons and having a ball and having a lot of time, making lots of noise, everything we can to make noise. We have one of the noisiest clubs you'll ever dance to. I know because my wife and I dance at a lot of clubs in the Front Range, and we compare them to our home club and go, these clubs are dead. There's no noise here. Our club comes in, they start making hooping and hollering, and everybody's having a grand old time. And we didn't worry about the dress. Our ladies are buying the fancy dresses, but we started off with the prairie dresses for dances. But 3 things we did that seemed to make a click with all these students was, 1, we showed them that square dancing can be fun, and they loved that. 2, I got a lot of pats on the back for being very patient and not pushing hard and finding more than one way to explain a call and to teach them a call. And then the 3rd thing, which everybody, 100% of our new dancers said was great and they liked it and made a difference in them joining the club, was that we invited them to every dance that we held, every regular dance we had during their lessons. So we started on our odd week. We danced first and third Saturdays. So in the second week, we started our lessons. We had our chili dinner on a Tuesday, started on Thursday. A week later, they had 4 lessons. We invited them for a half-hour dancing. About half of our students in both classes showed up. 2 weeks later, they had 8 lessons. We invited them for an hour, geared at what they knew. About half the students showed up. 2 weeks later, they had 12 lessons under their belt. They're hitting about 42 calls, 45 calls, depending on the club, to dance. And everybody showed up because the whole dance was geared to what they knew, nothing else. And we didn't have to push the fact that we just mixed everybody up because we had so many new dancers that everybody was dancing with everybody. We didn't, no clicks here or clicks there. We just don't worry about mistakes. We embrace mistakes and have a good time. And they all, 100% of them will tell you that's what bonded them to the club, because now they got a feel for a dance, and a real dance, not just lessons. And they got to meet the rest of the club members who weren't coming as angels. And so, and now we have all of those members involved some way or another. We have club officers. We have somebody writing articles for our bulletins. We have caller coordinators who make sure there's housing for a guest caller who comes through and needs it, because you come call for us in the winter, you may spend the night with us because it's just can't get over the pass because of the snow and ice. So, but what we did, and we moved our normal time from September to November, which we always did because we didn't want to interfere with the ski time. I told him, I said, if I'm going to do this teaching, you're going to have to move it to January because I just can't be ready. I don't know how to do this stuff. So we did it in January, and we go like, God, if we'd only done this 10 years ago, January is the best time for us. You know, they're skiing all day, and then they come square dance with us all night. So, I mean, it was just amazing that we were forced into thinking outside the box and trying something new. And if we can just convince clubs that you don't have to wait till you're about dead to start thinking outside the box and try something new and get the social activity back into the club. And it's not about so much the dance, but it's these people love to come and socialize and talk with each other and just have a good time. I think there's no reason why we can't build square dancing up to, huge numbers again, because if you've been one of the other, there's 78 million baby boomers fixing to come on board. And if we provide them a fun entertainment with a social activity and get them out and make it reasonable and don't worry so much about dress and don't worry about the choreography. Most of them just want to have fun. If you try to keep them dancing and keep them successful and laugh with them and mingle with them and shake hands with them, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I think we can get it back into huge numbers. I know we've got a guy here who's seen it from everything, and I'm probably naive, only having been at it 2 years, but maybe that's the attitude we need to get back to. Everything is possible. So I think he wants to talk about the stage swingers.
Thank you kindly for that description. And yes, indeed, I have seen everything. But that, I think, is a large part of our problem. We have a whole gang of people out there in our clubs who've been around a long time, and they've seen square dance activity dwindle and go away, and whatever you come up with, they say, oh, we've tried that and it won't work. And I have the sense that a lot of our trouble comes from the stick in the mud, we've always been there attitude of a lot of the existing dancers, with some justification. They've worked very hard in those clubs. They've been participants. They've been brought food to the potluck suppers, and they've put on costumes and had parties, and they've been there and done that, and they've watched the club dwindle, and they don't see any other way. The Sage Swingers in Brunswick, Maine, were such a club in the late 90s. They had dwindled from the thriving days when you could expect 20 squares at any Saturday night dance anywhere in the area, down to the point where they were lucky if they could get 2. And a small group of then younger dancers, they were in their 40s, I think, at the time, looked at the club and said, we're going to do it differently. And in fact, it was Mike Seastrom came and talked to dancers in our area. Our Callers Association set up a community meeting, and Mike came and told us about the multi-cycle teaching approach, where we didn't have to start our class in September. And that was a brand new concept, very difficult to accept. But the Sage Swingers decided, well, gee, that probably makes good sense. They also made one other crucial, I believe, decision in the process of starting over, and that was that they would no longer try to be a plus club. Every club in New England is a plus club. There are hardly any clubs that are willing to acknowledge that they dance the mainstream program only. We have switched to alternating tips at most of our dances. The biggest benefit of that is that people have learned again how to do some of the mainstream calls that they never used before. But Sage Swingers decided they were not going to try to take people in the 22 or 3 weeks that they had for a class all the way to plus. And their solution for that was to say, we're going to become a mainstream club. They then worked out a whole new philosophy of things and set about making it work. And this was in 2001 or 2002. And we, in the handout, I think it's worth noticing that they say they set out to grow the club by getting more members and to make more, be sure people are having a good time and to ensure the new members come back. That was their goal, and some of the old goals that they no longer strive for. We do not feel people need to graduate from a mainstream program by a certain date. Classes do not have to start in September only. Learning to dance is not a race to see how quickly you can get to plus or A1. And we need to downplay classic square dance clothes and make sure people know it's optional. With those philosophies and the decision to be a mainstream club, they started to grow. And they ran for 3 or 4 years, 2 classes a year. They don't do them in the summertime because it's a vacation area, and so they weren't able to do that. But they did run 2 classes a year. They recruited successfully with some of the techniques that Dennis has talked about, and it's all described in great detail in the handout we've got for you. But the wonderful thing for me about the Sage Swingers is that they have grown steadily since they had this change of philosophy. They've tried, the leaders of that group have tried to persuade area clubs to adopt the same attitude and to switch to be mainstream clubs. Most of the club dances in the area are plus. But the Sage Swingers will call and say, if you'll run a mainstream dance, we'll bring a busload. And they have created a lot more mainstream dancing in the area by doing just that. And they bring a busload. They bring 40 people. And lo and behold, lots of clubs in the area are willing to have a mainstream dance if you'll bring 40 people in a bus. But for me, the wonderful thing is that the Sage Swingers have continued to grow. And the clearest demonstration of that is that last November, I called a Saturday night dance for them and had 11 squares. That was nice, and that's a large dance for our area these days. But the more wonderful thing was that the Thursday night before that dance, they had had their regular club dance with a different 11 squares. There was a lot of overlap, but they had half of that 11 squares at their club dance were people who don't dance on Saturday night. They just dance with the club on the weekday. That's the way square dance clubs used to operate. We had half of most of my clubs over many years never danced on Saturday night. They were weekday club members. They came to the club meetings that happened on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they never went out on Saturday night. We had a bunch of eager beavers who also went out on Saturday night, and they went to guest callers and other clubs and all those good things. But a huge share of them just danced to the club. They were members of a group, and that feeling of belonging to a group was a very important thing. Sage Swingers have been wonderfully successful. There is, however, a dark cloud hovering somewhere in Portland or thereabouts, because now they have several people who have been dancing with the club once a week for 5 years. They're pretty competent dancers, and they're well aware that there's plus dancing around the area. Some of them are going to other clubs to dance plus, but they'd like their club to dance plus. And you know, they really, and they have had a struggling debate in the club leadership. They have a couple of very strong leaders who are committed to the view that we can do plus dancing, but it's going to be somewhere else. But that's a problem that you get to. The funny thing is, going back into history, which I don't want to do a whole lot, but when I started my first club in 1956, we did just fine for the first 3 years. And at the end of the first 3 years, the club leaders came to me and said, Jim, there's this other stuff going on. You know, we see records and we go out to Saturday nights, other places. Could we make the club a little more challenging? They didn't use those words, but that's what they were saying. I made a serious mistake. What I should have said in my wisdom as a leader is, you folks who want this are so much better dancers than the ordinary. You are so outstanding and so special that we really ought to provide a different location for you so that you can exercise the skills that you have that are way better than the rest of the people. But why don't we just make it for the ordinary people, keep the club the way it is so that they can get in? I didn't do that. I changed the club. And we have been making that mistake for the last 50 years. I hope we can learn not to do it again. But his club will sooner or later want to move on to dance what the people in Denver dance. Maybe that can happen. He's got a solution. Right now, the people who want to dance plus dance in the afternoon. And then the club dances their party night in the evening. I think the two have to be kept separate. And what square dancing, what the whole square dance activity of modern square dancing did, was to change the character of our dance everywhere so that it became not accessible to new dancers. We got to fix that. The Sage Swingers have found a way to do that. It's working. I was particularly pleased because at that November dance that I called, they got two of their members who have started to be interested in calling. They called them up to the stage and gave them each $500 to go to color school. It was the second year they'd done that for one of them. That, too, is the way clubs used to think. It is possible to make that happen. And that's one of the two clubs that I have been able to find that have a record of growth or maintenance of a substantial attendance. And the other one that I know about is a club in San Diego, are they? Simi Valley. And Lee Veronica is here with us. It is a club that she has been working with for some time, and they too have a record. I asked her to send me a listing of attendance, and she started out with November of 1953. They had 114 members. 93, yeah, and 114 members, and now they're dealing with 184 members, and that's the way clubs thrive by maintaining over a long period of time. And Chuck, if you would take this microphone back to Lee, I would appreciate it if she could say just a few words about how that club operates and how you make it possible for that to happen. Lee, would you hold up your hand so he knows who you are?
Stand up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't warn her that I was going to ask her to speak a whole lot.
Yeah, you put me on the spot here.
But just tell us a little bit about how the club operates.
Okay, at 2:30 I'm going to be doing a presentation, and you'll hear it all right then. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay?
Don't give it all away, but just a few hints, any comments that you can add to what I've said.
To agree with everything you're saying, mostly, except that our club is run by a whole team. Every member that's on the roster is part of the team. And we all have that attitude, which is the good attitude. And so jobs get done. People are willing to help. People do recruit. Yes, they're bringing their friends and strangers. And we have a caller who's very involved with our club, Dick Hoddenfield right here. And he and his wife, they offer suggestions if we ask, but they do not run the club. It's not their club. Is that the right way to say it? Okay. We appreciate them. Okay. And we have a really good time. We have a fun club. We have a noisy club also. And what else can I say?
That's an important thing to say. And I'd like to pick up on one of the points that you made, and that is that everybody participates. They all share in the work. It has dawned on me over a long period of time that sociability is one of the most important things that square dancing has to offer. I have been saying for a long time that we have three things. Choreography is one of them. Music and rhythm is the second one, and sociability is the third one. And each of them is important to the success of our activity. It took decades and decades for me to understand that executive committee meetings for the club, where the leaders got together, and once a month they'd get together and spend a whole evening. They'd break out the coffee and the donuts or cake or whatever, and do the work that my wife succeeded in doing for the Caller Run club that we had. She did it in about an hour once a month. They got together once a month with a gang of 8 couples and spent the night doing the club's work. And it finally registered on me that the reason they got together was not to do the club's work. They were having a party. And doing the club's work was a project that let them enjoy each other's company. I'm afraid that we have lost a great deal of that kind of sociability that used to be an important part of square dancing. And yesterday we had a session on putting the fun back in, putting the you back in fun, and that was the subject that we were thriving on there and pushing on. I think it is a key to the success of all the groups that we've heard about so far. What I'd now like to do is to open the floor to comments and questions and get an open discussion going about how things can succeed in our activity, because we hear so often about the downfall and the disasters that we're facing. But here we have in this room 3 examples of success. Let's talk some more about what those examples have in common and hear about any other examples of success that you might be able to offer. Identify yourself. And
John Ryan, Ventura, California. How did you promote your chili cook-off thing, and how did you let people know about it?
Well, the first year we actually got lucky and had an article in the paper and thought that was a big deal. You know, it was a great article, great picture. Turned out it had no relevance to what we did. It was all one-on-one. But we stressed everybody. You know, you've probably asked your neighbors and your friends for the last 5 years to come to lessons. You can ask them again, but this time just ask them, and the doctor, the lawyer, the handyman who's working at your house, whoever you pass by, just tell them, hey, look, if you're interested, our square dance community, the local club, is putting on a party night for the community. Everybody is welcome. No expectations. Just come and have one good night of fun. It's free. It's cheaper than going to the movies. And we asked everybody to bring 4 names and email addresses or some kind of a mailing address. Because what we told people, we're going to do this, and we started in September for January. And so we only want your address so that we can mail you an RSVP 2 weeks before so we know how much chili to make. And we had like 5 pots of chili, and the last one we had to water down a little bit to make it last. But we quit asking the neighbors, so to speak. Everybody opened it up, and like I said, we didn't push lessons. Because if you'd said we're going to recruit for lessons, nobody would have showed up. We just had one night of fun. And before we get away from that, I'd like to say something about what he said about the Sage Swingers and the mainstream part. I have dancers who had a great time, but a lot of my new dancers were second homeowners in the area. They came out and lived for 4 months and ski. Then they go back east, and they quit dancing because they run into plus clubs. And you don't have a place for them to dance. And so then, we now have to rebuild them again from January to March to May because they lost all their skills, and they didn't want to jump out of lessons and dance for 1 month and then go there and start taking lessons all over again, But as I said earlier, I think we need to get our situation to where the dance is selling itself. Quit pushing so hard, because the more I try to say, hey, I want you in my dance class, it's like people will automatically back up. And we actually had 3 clubs in the Colorado area who followed our style of doing it, and they've all doubled the size of their clubs. So it's not just a one club thing.
Jimmy Aiken, San Diego. I have 3 questions. What's making that noise? Well, let's try moving. I had a couple questions. The first one is the specific language you used on the flyer for your chili night. I assumed you explained there was also going to be dance in there. How did you phrase that?
It's just a community dance, fun, friendship, and food. We just said it's a party night, come dance, have a good time. And I might add, we spent about $5 on flyers. That's all. It was all one-on-one. I mean, you can look on Winning Ways, you can look at all the magazines, and the marketing people will tell you, it's one-on-one personal that does 80% of the bringing in of people. And so, again, we ask people to go and one-on-one. And we look for opportunities. Like in our area, they have a senior dinner on Monday nights. And so we got to looking around. We had 20 square dancers in that group. So we started, one-on-one and said, look, it's about just coming out for one night of fun and entertainment. We don't expect you to join our class or join our lessons or anything, but just come have fun. We're putting on a show. We're providing the entertainment. We're providing the food. This is the way we start our lessons every year, which was a lie. This is the first time we did it. They don't need to know. But what we tried to do was remove that expectation of we wanted them to join our club and take lessons. We wanted them to just come out, and we took that opportunity to show them there's a different music. We use jazz, we use 70s, we use Disney music, and they were going like, I didn't know you use that kind of music. Well, yeah, but we waited until 40 minutes into the dance before we said, in case you're having fun and you like this, we got some cards out here on the table Thursday night, because this is a Tuesday, and Thursday night we're going to start lessons. If you're interested in joining us, we'd love to have you. And it's not just about the dance. We love to have a good time and have fun. And as you can see, we've been laughing and hollering all night long. So if you want to do a little bit more of this, we're going to charge you $50 for 10 weeks for 20 lessons. It works out about $2 a night. Where can you get some fun and food for $2 a night? And then just sort of let it die. Twice a week. Yeah, we did lessons twice a week, and for our community, they really loved that. You ask them later, would you have done this for 22 weeks or 28 weeks? No. But not every community can work that way. But luckily, I was the new teacher, the new guy on the street, and I lived right there. But all our local callers from Denver area, which is 70 miles away, came up, and as callers, I mean, we're preaching to callers. It's the clubs that got to do a lot of this work. But like Leah said, it takes a caller and a club to work together. You got to be willing to help the club, but quit pushing square dance. I mean, you go out there and you watch people. If you've never watched square dance and you watch them, those people are having fun, and that'll sell itself. But if you try to drag them in the door, they're like 5-year-old kids. You're not taking me anywhere,
Yeah, I tried something similar. In addition to calling, I'm also president of a club. And when my home club started its new class this last year, I tried something similar. We didn't have the chili component, but I really wanted to not sell this as the start of a class, but just as we're going to have, instead of 3 open classes, we're going to have 3 fun dances. No experience required. Just come on out, have fun. And we'd mention at announcement time at the end of the dance that, by the way, if you're enjoying this, there's going to be some lessons. You can learn some more stuff and have some more fun. What I found, though, it worked well, but I found it partially hamstrung by the fact that the club members were sending a class message to people, that they would talk to the new dancers in terms of a class, and I found it difficult to shake them out of that mindset. I was wondering if there are particular things that you did to deal with that kind of issue.
It's certainly true that one of the serious problems that we have facing us is the tunnel vision or mindset of existing longtime dancers. They have been trained so long in a single path that it's very hard to develop the kind of new attitude that we're talking about here. And I'm not sure exactly how you break out of that, but I believe it's essential to do it if we're going to succeed.
Justin Russell from Memphis. And I know Dennis pretty well, so it might just be for Jim. But the problem that I've had is that the president of the club is like, why don't you have them dancing mainstream yet? Why are they falling behind? And I didn't know how to really solve that problem.
Well, for openers, take him this handout and read to him what the Sage Swingers say in their policy statement. I think my personal judgment, based on 59 years of watching, is that we have gotten ourselves in no end of difficulty by setting deadlines for learning. As far back as ancient times, we trained new dancers to be ready for the New England Square Dance Convention at the end of April every year. And that was fine when we had 20 calls. When we got to 50 calls, it began to be a problem. And when we got to 70, it was impossible. So just flat out, you got to tell them that everybody in this room and nearly everybody at this convention will tell you that there's no way in the world you're going to teach people to be competent mainstream dancers in one season. Get over it.
I think one of the things that we did, again, if you're creating a very fun environment in the lessons, one, they learn a lot quicker. If you get away from the rigid, I've got to teach 4 calls tonight, what happens if you only teach 2? It's okay. There's a point where the brain's shut down and you can work as hard as you want to. They're not going to learn anything. But I tried to take that expectation away from them by saying, we got 20 lessons here in 10 weeks, and we're going to make it. But if we don't, that's okay. But that's where the caller, and as Jim said, some of these people who have been dancing for a long time had the tunnel vision, and you got to say that as a teacher, it's your job to teach them right and wait till they get there. Because every book I ever read in doing my homework to become a caller teacher said, don't push them. You know, they're going to get brain dead after about an hour and a half, and you got to allow them to have fun, make mistakes, and say, you know, okay, we don't have to learn it tonight. We'll do something else. But you're the one who's responsible for teaching them, and you got to say, I'll move them forward when they're ready. You know, because what's the use of shoving something at them and say, now on to the next one? Because if they haven't learned, you know, this move, they can't do the next one, right?
Lest you get to thinking this is a brand new problem. When I taught my first club in 1956, we had 5 lessons. And by the end of the 4th lesson, I had taught them everything there was to know about square dancing, and so I had to go back and review in the 5th lesson. But we started building up as we added calls, and we got to a point where we were teaching 12 lessons, and that wasn't being enough for me to be comfortable with what I was teaching. So I tried to push the club to go to 20 lessons. And this was somewhere in the 60s. No way that would they go to 20 lessons. You know, we got to get these people into the club. We need them, you know. Wow. I came up with a wonderful idea. I let the class vote for whether they'd like to continue the class a few more lessons. And no class will ever vote to end the class. You can count on it. If you just tell the club, well, why don't we let the class vote on this? I got away with that for a decade.
Yeah, one of the things we did after we finished our 10 weeks, I scheduled 8 workshops after, you know, once a week workshops after that, which then they paid $5 a head to come to the workshops. And I always had 100% participation, because as soon as we were doing the lessons, like I said, they were already going to dances. And so they were then starting to see which calls they had problems with, and we started helping them travel. And then they would come back, and I'm sure you know that new dancers don't want to interrupt the dance to find out how to do a call they have forgotten. But at a workshop, that's their job, to ask you what to do, you know. So, yeah.
Scott Pierce from California. Dennis, I'd like to know how... Okay, we'll come over here. I'd like to know how large of a community Frisco is, and did the dynamics of a small community versus a large city impact the ability to promote your initial chili cook-off?
Well, again, our club is in Frisco, Colorado, which is part of Summit County, and the Summit County is made up of 5 towns: Silverthorne, Frisco, Dillon, and Breckenridge. And locals just call it Summit County. Visitors call it Frisco, Silverthorne, or whatever. There's about 20,000 people registered living there full-time, so to speak. At any given time in the winter, there's 150,000 for skiing, and now there's usually, 80,000 or more during the summer. And what you're alluding to is what some of the clubs in Denver have said, well, you guys are so bored up there, you don't have anything to do. My members will just get hot when you say that to them, because there's so many things, because it is a resort community. There are tons of things for them to do. And I'm going, well, even if that's true, I only had 20-some thousand people to choose from. You got 3 million in Denver. What's your problem, you know? But, again, it all gets back down to one-on-one personal stuff, and not selling lessons. What we promoted was the idea that in order to start our lessons, we just had a big party night for the whole community. So this is our way of kicking off for those people who may be taking lessons. And I'm not asking you to join lessons, but we're going to have a fun night, and it doesn't matter whether you're drawing out of 20,000 or 5,000 or 1 million. If you reach out there and every club member has to bring in 4 or 5 names, and you're always going to have those 1 or 2 people who can tag a lot of people. You may only talk to 2, but John over here may talk to 25. And it's a numbers game. It's like an insurance. You get 100 people to get 40 or 50 to start, and then if you do it right and have a lot of fun, they'll stay, because that was, I could talk all night.
Marcia Tucker, and I'm a partner for Robert Tucker. He's from Wichita, Kansas, and he's club caller for one club, and he does lessons for two. That's a good idea to recruit people to come. But the one club he does lessons for is 2 times a week, and this year they couldn't even do lessons because they couldn't get anybody to come. But the other club, for 4 years, we've done the 4 Saturdays, and they've furnished the food, and we bring people, and we have done 2 this year already, and there's like 17, both lessons. There were 17, and it's a smaller town. We're next to Wichita, but it's Newton. It's next, but the recruiting, that sounds like an interesting idea. I might bring that back to them. Oh, what we do on Saturdays is we start like at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the club members all bring food, and we have a dinner. And the best thing to do is serve your dinner like at 1 o'clock, because like you said, after they eat, they just kind of go brain dead. And so what Bob usually does is he teaches in the morning and then just reviews in the afternoon, and it lasts till about 3 o'clock. And we do this 4 Saturdays in a row. And then our club is a very friendly club. We allow singles and couples. It doesn't make any difference. We dance with everybody, and everybody that's gone through our lessons is almost all of them joined our club.
If you take nothing out of here, it's that there is no magic formula. That's, you got to try what works in your community, and what you're talking about is a good thing, because maybe they say, I can't give you every Saturday or something, but I can do 1 or 2 Saturdays. But it's got to be, try what works for you. And if it doesn't work, it's probably better than what you did last year. And then next year you can try something new.
A question. I'm not sure I understand your one Saturday. Are you teaching square dancing one Saturday morning and that's it? 4 Saturdays.
We do 4 Saturdays in a row, and we teach, but he teaches usually till about 1 o'clock, and then we eat, and then we just review for that Saturday. We do it 4 Saturdays in a row. Then we have a big party for graduation on the 4th Saturday.
Okay, and then the club dances what has been taught in those
Right,
periods.
And all the lessons are taught in those periods, but if you eat too early...
Do you get somewhere near through the mainstream list in those 4 Saturdays?
We get through the mainstream list,
What's the age group you're working with?
Well, we had some teenage kids this year, and last year both, and some younger couples in 40s, and most of them are younger ones that's doing it now. It took a while to get this started. At first, it was pretty slow, but the recruiting, that's an idea about having a party and just get people to come to meet the people.
Start it,
because really, if they can get to know the club, and if it's a friend club, it makes a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah, Paul Walker from North Carolina. I wanted to ask you, with your chili dinner, how did you advertise it? What kind of promotions did you use to get people there? And I don't know, I call in a town that's about maybe 26,000 people. But I would hate to have an open invitation for us to have all the homeless, derelicts, and people who just want a free meal to come to it. So there's got to be some control on how you promote it. Please expound on that.
Well, as I've said before, our club members went out and they had a goal, and we looked in one of the earlier sessions talked about setting a goal. Our goal was our dancers went out and got 4 or 5 names. In the first year, we had the article in the paper, and we know we got some people that just came for the food, But the second year, we didn't have an article. And that's when it dawned on us, and when we talked to all the students we got in the first year, we only had 1 couple that came from the newspaper. So we solved that problem that you worried about, because I went to this guy and told him, and I went to this guy and told him, I went to this lady and invited her. So you and I are controlling who we're asking only we're getting away from just my neighbor and just my friends. You know, I asked the doctor, as our president says, they were remodeling their house. When the electrician came, she gave him a flyer. When the plumber came, she asked him. When the carpenter came, she asked him. Everybody that walked through that house, she asked, you know. So, and got an address. Yeah. So you're getting an address. You've got an eyeball on who you're asking. Now you have no clue, and you're not asking them to come join lessons. You're just asking them for a fun night. That's all. So you have control over that homeless situation. But we picked up a couple guys that were big chili eaters, you know. What we did, we asked them if they would come, and we asked them for the address, and then we sent out personal letters. We had a little typed up letter 2 weeks before, and we hand addressed the envelope, and on every little form letter, we had a little committee that got together, and we had names of who invited who. And so you may have invited Joyce, but I signed a letter for you that said, Joyce, we're looking forward to seeing you at our fun and friendship and food night. We're going to have a ball. That was my little add-on to this form letter. And then make sure you let us know, because we need to know how much chili. And people understand that. You're putting together a party and you're sort of opening it up. You got to have some idea of how much food to bring, and people don't have a problem with that. So, like I said, we had 88 people show up for our first one and 99 for the second one, and we were looking at around 70 is what we thought. So that's why we watered down the chili at the end.
Dennis, we started our program in 2001 with the personal invitation, and somehow I think you must have gotten one of those invitations. The gentleman in the back that asked about the wording on the invitation, if you come to my presentation, that's what I'm going to hand to you, is the package with the invitation in it. As far as putting an ad in the newspaper, because we're having a dinner, we do put on a free dinner the first night, is that we have a phone number. We don't mention the dinner, but anybody who calls the number is invited to dinner. That's the way we keep from having people just come to the door. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, if I may. Do you have round dancing at your dances?
Not anymore. All our round dancers have pretty much faded out or gone. We only have a couple. Uh-huh. We are actually in the process of this spring trying to get a new youth caller who's teaching to come up and hang out with us for 2 nights a week and teach round dance, because they're open to that idea. But right now we don't. But for gentlemen back there, about what we did, if you want to go to the Denver Council at squaredance.com/Denver, you'll look on their website. You'll see news. You go to that link. There's a link for recruiting ideas. Everything that we did is on there in a PDF. squaredance.com/Denver.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is that you said you have your class twice a week. Is the second night of the week a reinforcement of what they learned the first night, or is it new steps?
We review everything, but because you do it twice a week, you spend very little time reviewing. I pretty much taught 3 and 4 calls every night. And like I said, we had a 20-night program, and I generally got done on the 17th night, because when you're doing it twice a week, you don't have to spend so much time reviewing. They hold that retention. We did Tuesdays and Thursdays, and because we figured those were the best days of the week. And Thursday created a problem for people who wanted to, because some of them were in church music or something like that, so we could, some of them said, well, I want to only come on Tuesdays. I said, no, if you're only going to come on Tuesday, it's not going to work. Catch us next year. And you have to be careful, because we had a club in Salida, Colorado, who tried our formula, as you call it, and they did it on Wednesdays and Saturday afternoons. I go, you're going to kill this. Right. They had a great chili dinner. They picked up 28 people and lost them all within about 3 weeks because of Saturday afternoons. I said, you cannot have people. You can't shoot their whole weekend. You got to get them dancing first. Then they'll come on Saturday night and dance after they've worked in their yard or whatever. But you have to be careful. We used to do Monday and Wednesday or Tuesdays and Thursdays, whatever the club. But we have one club that does it once a week. And like I said, they have doubled the size of their club by following our chili dinner philosophy, which is we're inviting you just to come out here and have fun with us and see what we do.
That's right.
But we're not expecting you to join our club. If I don't want you to join my club, you want to get in, right?
Right.
It's, what do you call that stuff? Psychology?
Reverse psychology. Yes. So then, is there another club in the area with a beginner's class that is not like yours, but is in competition with you?
No, we're 70 miles from the nearest club.
Okay.
And so, Denver used to do the multi-cycle thing, and most of them the multi-cycle has died because they had a lot of problem with get everybody from 3 or 4 clubs into one area, and then the clubs were fighting over the people, trying to steal them from this part. So most of them have now tried to contact callers to teach for them. We have one group that has 3 clubs that come together, and they all had great results this year. It's a great caller, does once a week. And but part of the problem they've had down there is that people go through their lessons. They won't let them go to a dance until they complete the lessons. And when they get there, they want them in a club, but they don't want to dance with them for a year. So the people after 2 dances say, I'm done with this mess because you really don't want me here. Our club embraces everybody. We won't let a square get together as all new dancers. We just mingle in and out and have a great long time. And I think we kill, we say we want you in, but we're not going to dance with you until you're great. Right. Well, the people who saying that aren't even great. Right. They can't dance. But what are you saying to people that, you're not willing to dance with them until they're perfect? And then they're going to say, well, you guys aren't as friendly as you say you were, so I'll go to the movies, I'll go swing dance or something else.
Right. Yeah. Where is the guy that...
Anybody else got a comment or a question or something to add to our discussion? If not, we're going to close the door. I got one down back. Chuck. He's trying to find a place where the microphone will operate without...
Wayne Weston from Texas. I've just a general comment, and it goes back to what Jim said and a little bit about what you said and things. Recruiting people is the most difficult part of our job. And if we can get them in a class, we can keep them in the class and we can make it fun and we can get them dancing. They have to have some place to dance when they graduate. New England area and parts of California are difficult because there's no mainstream program. Denver, I was there 20 years ago. I'm not sure how it is now, but there used to be a big distinction between mainstream and plus. Clubs dance mainstream, clubs dance plus, A or whatever, but if you went to a mainstream dance, that's what you got, and it was fun and it was interesting, and someone graduating from class could dance. We don't have that in a lot of places. And I think we need more of that to keep those dancers dancing longer. And I think that's important, and that's one of the things that's lacking in some parts of the country.
Well, like I said, in Colorado, mostly everything is a mainstream club with a half hour of plus to start with. We have some sprinkling of plus clubs. But like I said, I have a problem with teaching people mainstream, and then they go back home to Virginia or Wisconsin or Ohio, and they can't dance without having to go through lessons all over again. And they just said it's not worth it because, one, they haven't learned the people. They haven't been able to go to a dance and get bonded, because I had one couple back in Ohio, they had to learn plus right away. They couldn't even join the club. They had to take a test. I'm going, what? Take a test? They had to do a plus test. So they came back, and they're part of the club now. But I'm going, what kind of mentality is that? I thought this was supposed to be fun.
Isn't it amazing that we get anybody to join our activity when we treat them that way?
My name is Dick Hodnefield, and I teach for the Boots and Slippers here in Simi Valley. And I'm really interested in all the comments, and everybody's glad to see the enthusiasm that people have. Gentlemen, you commented about no place to dance. Our lessons start in September, and the first Saturday in November is their first dance night. And we dance every first Saturday through June. And it is at class level as the class progresses. I agree with everybody else. I do follow lists, but lists are not what make our activity go. We do an awful lot of time spending hashing over ridiculous things like what call is first and what call is second, and whether we have 100 or if we have whatever. I've been doing this for 36 years myself, and I know that we had just as much fun when we went square dancing. There were no lists involved other than Bob Osgood list he published, and other than that, we went and had a good time and danced and hooped and hollered and carried on, and we try to keep that going at our lessons right now. Last night we had lessons. We had 107 angels at class. Okay, so plus students between our club and another club was visiting us last night. We had about 35 students. Okay, so we generally every Monday night we dance anywhere from 12 to 15 squares with about 20 or so class members.
So that shows it's all possible.
Oh, it can be done.
I was in a session before this, and Patty Green made I thought was an excellent remark, was what is your goal? Set a goal. Is your goal just to grow dancers and make your club get bigger? If so, you're probably going to fail. If your goal is to get new friends into your club to have fun with and socialize with, then you have a different attitude, and they will become dancers, and if you just keep them dancing, they'll get better eventually. But if your only goal is just to get numbers of people, you're not going to give them the right impression about your club, and so they're not going to stay. You've got to be wanting them in there because you just like being with them and having fun with them, and then everything else will take care of itself. And like I said, if you're hooping and hollering, how can you not have a smile on your face? You know?
Okay, we've had lots of positive comments. I'm very pleased to hear. I gather that you offer a program, a place to dance, where they're not required to learn plus, even here in California. You end up there eventually, but you don't rush to get there. Okay. It's interesting sometime if you want to entertain yourself, do a frequency count on the dance you call. Count the number of times you use each call, and you will discover that at least 60% of your dance is made up of no more than 20 calls, no matter who you are. Thank you all for coming out. I think we've had a lively discussion and some positive sounding results that folks are telling us that it can be done. Let's go out and do it. Thank you.